Hi, my name is Lynn Perry. I'm putting together this presentation to show people how they can become qualified for New York State unemployment insurance. How, if you're already on New York State unemployment insurance, you can work with the system to possibly qualify for a second claim when your first claim has ended. This is doable, it's legal, and there's no reason why you shouldn't do it. I'm going to be showing you where to find the New York State Department of Labor's Unemployment Insurance Claimant Handbook. That's a mouthful. And I'll be quoting out of that. I will reference the page numbers that I'm quoting from. Hopefully you'll have your book with you and you can follow through. I'd also like to say I am not affiliated in any way with the New York State Department of Labor. I am not one of their employees. I am not certified to be representing them. I'm just an individual person who has had the unfortunate, or maybe fortunate, depending on how you look at it, opportunity to use their services many times over the past few decades. It's been rough in our economy, you know that's true. Time is important, and I don't want to waste too much of your time. I know my time is important. I'm going to be putting together a worksheet, and how I'm going to approach this is to quote out of the Employee Claimant Handbook and then apply those quotes to the worksheet. And the worksheet is going to be done, it's just a visual, because it's really, really hard to translate all of that verbiage and reading out of the claimant handbook into something that actually makes logical sense. And this chart, this worksheet that I'll be putting together, which will be available to you on my website, it's going to make things a little clearer for you, I'm sure of it. And it's also going to help you understand whether or not you have the means available to you, if you're already on unemployment, to refile again. Or it may help you see how you can work with the system so that you can refile again. Unemployment is it's not a security blanket, it's a security net. It's there to help you get employed again. And understand that the people at the unemployment, or the Department of Labor, they're not there to try to disqualify you. They're there to try to qualify you. So don't be afraid to take what you've learned in this presentation to them. Ask questions. Validate what I'm telling you. Okay? All right, well, I guess I'll stop babbling now and let's jump into it. I'm going to try to move through some of these steps fairly quickly. And in this step of the presentation, I just want to show you where you can find your New York State Unemployment Department of Labor's Claimant Handbook. And it's online. If you go to www.labor.ny.gov, from their homepage, you want to go to Individuals, to the tab that says Individuals. You're going to go down to Forms and Publications and click on that. This gives you a list of all their forms and publications, but conveniently located on the upper left-hand menu bar is the Claimant Handbook link. So you will click on that. That takes you to a list of translations of the handbook, and since I only speak English, we're going to select the English translation. And there it is. Okay, now we're going to start working on my worksheet and building it up to find out if we qualify for New York State unemployment insurance. The worksheet, as you can see, is divided up into 3 years. Each year represents the 4 calendar quarters used by the Department of Labor. So the first thing we're going to do is document our employment. Now you may have to set your worksheet up a little differently, but this will give you an example of how it's done. I'm going to start out with the previous year that I was employed, which was 2011. And we're going to take it into the year that I became unemployed, which is 2012. And we're going to push it out until next year, which is 2013. Now let's document when we actually worked. We worked all of 2011, first quarter 2012, and half of first quarter half of second quarter, sorry, we'll say we became unemployed mid-May of 2012. Now let's get familiar with some of the terms. From page 2 of the Claimant Handbook, we read that there's a base period and an alternate period. A base period of employment is the first 4 of the last 5 completed calendar quarters prior to the calendar quarter in which your claim begins. That's hard to read. Let's see what that actually looks like. Okay, well, we became unemployed in May of 2012, so that's when our claim would begin because we would file for unemployment then. So we don't count that quarter. We look at the first 5 quarters prior to that, which would be these 5 quarters. So those are the last 5 quarters, but the only quarters that are going to actually count are the first 4, which would be all of 2011. So that's your qualifying base period. And last, we have the alternate covered employment, which is the last 4 completed calendar quarters immediately prior to the calendar quarter in which your claim begins. So what does that look like? Well, let's say our claim began in May, so the alternate period would be the last 4 quarters that we worked, which would be that. Now, why is that important? What's the point of these base periods? Well, on page 3 of the Claimant Handbook, we see that to qualify for benefits, you must have worked and been paid wages for employment in at least 2 calendar quarters in your qualifying base period. Now, if you don't have 2 calendar quarters in your qualifying base period, then you might want to consider using the alternate period. The one caution is that if you use the alternate period and one of those quarters ends up being your high wages and used to determine your benefit rate, which we'll get into later, you can't use that quarter again for subsequent claims. Okay, the next thing we're going to look at is this earnings line. What we need to do is, in each calendar quarter, figure out what our gross earnings were and enter that into the worksheet. And why is this important? Well, because the final part of qualifying us says that we must have been paid at least $1,600 in wages in one of the calendar quarters in our base period, which, we've got that easily covered. And additionally, the total wages paid to us in our base period must be 1 1/2 times your high quarter wages. Now, what does that mean? Well, we have to look at our high quarter wages, which in this example was $2,250. Our total earnings throughout our base period has to equal at least 1 1/2 times that, or $3,263. But we've easily covered that. So we now have everything we need to qualify for establishing an unemployment period. A couple of quick points I want to make here you should be aware of is that when you get your claim established, the first week doesn't count. It's like when you start a new job. You have to wait. You have a waiting week, and it's the same with unemployment. You have a waiting week. The second thing is, as far as your high quarter earnings, you'll notice down here an exception that if period. A couple of quick points I want to make here you should be aware of it, or $3,263. But we've easily covered that. So we now have everything we need to qualify for establishing an unemployment period. A couple of quick points I want to make here that you should be aware of is that when you get your claim established, the first week doesn't count. It's like when you start a new job. You have to wait. You have a waiting week, and it's the same with unemployment. You have a waiting week. The second thing is, as far as your high quarter earnings, you'll notice down here an exception that if your high quarter wages equal $8,910 or more, your earnings in the other base period quarters need to only total half of that, or $4,455, and that's kind of it's a very generous thing, because it's basically putting a cap on how high they can force your earnings to go before you qualify for unemployment. So, all right, let's move on. So when your claim is established, you receive 52 weeks of unemployment benefits, and it starts the day that you filed, and it goes the whole year, which will take us into May of 2013. Also, your benefit rate will be established for that year, and I'm not going to go into tons of detail because even though the rate is important, it's not what this video is really about. But what they do is they actually give you 26 weeks worth of a percentage of your total earnings of your high quarter, and that 26 weeks isn't really 26 consecutive weeks. It's funds for 26 weeks that are put into a pool, and that pool of funds, that account, if you will, can be dispersed throughout the period of 1 year. That doesn't mean that it's going to be dispersed all at once, though most people will take it all at once. They'll claim week after week after week, and at the end of 26 weeks, they're out of benefits, and they got another whole half a year to go. If they claim them for a couple of months and then skip a couple of months and then pick them back up, and you can do that. You can stop your claim and restart it. Why would you stop a claim? Well, maybe you got some part-time work. Should you take part-time work, or even a full-time temp job, even if it pays less than what you're getting on unemployment? Well, let's see, what are the benefits to doing that? Well, the benefits are you're going to be able to extend your unemployment, and I'll show you how. But for now, let's just work with the numbers that we have. And let's say that at some point during this benefit year, you do finally exhaust all of your benefit allowance, and it's all been dispersed. It's gone. There's no money left. Can you refile another unemployment claim? Well, let's look at that. This year's gone. We've used it all up. Now let's do another study on this situation. If we file another claim right here, the Department of Labor is going to look at the last 5 quarters, not including the quarter that we filed in. So it's not going to be this quarter. They're going to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a base period. I can't get my mouse to let go. There you go. All right. Our work history hasn't changed. We still worked all of 2011 and into second quarter 2012. Our base period is established as the first 5 quarters prior to the quarter in which we refiled, which brings us into here. And the quarters that qualify for income are the first. Going to look at the last 5 quarters. Well, let's look at that. This year's gone. We've used it all up. Now let's do another study on this situation. If we file another claim right here, the Department of Labor is going to look at the last 5 quarters, not including the quarter that we filed in. So it's not going to be this quarter. They're going to look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a base period. I can't get my mouse to let go. There you go. All right. Our work history hasn't changed. We still worked all of 2011 and into second quarter 2012. Our base period is established as the first 5 quarters prior to the quarter in which we refiled, which brings us into here. And the quarters that qualify for income are the first 4 quarters of those last 5, which are here. That's the qualifying base period. The rules haven't changed. To qualify for benefits, you must have worked and been paid for employment in at least 2 calendar quarters in your base period, which we have. And we must have been paid at least $1,600 in wages in one of those calendar quarters, which we were. And the critical part, the total wages paid in the base period must be 1 1/2 times your high quarter wages. So if we look at our first quarter and we multiply that times 1.5, I'll round it up, we need to have made a total of $3,263 at least in our base period in order to qualify. But we made $3,375. We are qualified. We can refile for unemployment benefits. But what if this had been our high quarter? Then that quarter can no longer be used to qualify for benefits. And we're not going to qualify with just working in 1 quarter and making only $1,200. So here's where we need to start to think about, should I take on work while I'm on my unemployment claim? Well, let's look and see what would happen. Let's say that summer we lucked out and we actually got a contract and we earned $1,650 that summer, July and August and September. Well, now we've extended our work period. So maybe we had collected unemployment for 6 weeks or so, and we stopped our unemployment because we started to work, but we've extended the work period. Now we get laid off. Okay, we kick our unemployment benefits back in, we go right back on them. But at the end of the year, when it's time to look at, did we qualify to refile, here's what happened. Because we picked up the part-time job, now remember, we're saying that this quarter we can't use because it was our high quarter, but we still qualified because we made at least $1,600 in one of the calendar quarters, or the first 4 of the 5 base period. And we had to have made at least $2,475 in all the quarters, not including the one that we can't count. But we made $2,850. So yes, we do qualify at this level for unemployment. Now we're probably not going to get as good a rate as we got before, but anything's better than nothing. So hopefully this chart has helped you understand a little bit of why it's not a bad thing to take on work during your unemployment. It could save you in the long run. So that's it. I hope this was helpful, and please feel free to visit my website to get the worksheet, a blank worksheet, and this and the video is also available there for you to use. And please don't be afraid to take this information to the Department of Labor and ask questions about it, because they can explain in a lot more detail and a lot more angles that you may be able to qualify for unemployment with. Oh, well, one last note. If you're going to file your unemployment, you want to file it as soon as you can. You don't want to wait. Because what can happen is, if, let's say you get laid off at the very end of a calendar quarter, and that's frequently what happens. If you get laid off on June 20th and you wait until July 10th to file an unemployment claim, you've actually lost a quarter. If you don't file in the quarter that you become unemployed, it moves you into the next quarter, which means the last quarter drops off. That can affect your rate. If the last quarter was your high earnings, if you're refiling, you could lose a whole quarter that would otherwise qualify you. So keep that in mind. Don't wait until you drop into the next quarter to start your unemployment claims. Start it the day you get laid off. I hope this helps at least one person survive their unemployment, and I wish everyone good luck at finding jobs, and God bless. A sample worksheet that was used in this video, along with a blank worksheet for you to work from, can be found at www.UnempoymentAGAIN.avi. Go to the home page and click on the I Love New York button.